Contrary to a lot of popular belief on past videos, you don't have to have a lot of tools to make some pretty cool stuff. Today we're gonna make a shelf out of nothing more than a jigsaw, a pencil, tape measure, some glue, and maybe a square. And we're gonna make us a cool shelf. Now we're gonna make this quick, and yes, I'm going to use just a jigsaw. Even though I have a table saw and many other tools, we do not need that to complete this project. This simple 1x12 from the lumberyard big box store. You can buy them in 6-foot lengths. I happen to have some scraps. These simple pine 1x4s from same said lumber store or big box store. Again, I have scraps. You can buy them in 6-foot lengths or 8-foot. A lot of times I buy them in 6-foot lengths because you can fit them in a regular vehicle easier and you don't have to have a truck to haul them. So with these scraps, we're going to do something kind of creative. I'm going to make a frame kind of like this, a square frame, we're gonna say. And then we're gonna take this 1x12 and we're gonna notch it in to the sides to help support it. And it's gonna be kind of like a floating, artsy looking shelf. Yeah, run it up to that corner and draw a line. There's our first cut. We're gonna cut these with a jigsaw. Jigsaws like to make all kinds of curves and whatnot. Sometimes don't like to make straight lines. So what we can do is use our square, and then we're going to run our saw along said square, and it's gonna keep our cut very straight. And if we don't have straight lines for this, we're gonna have problems. Put our saw up against the square, run our blade up right next to our pencil line, and make our cut. And now, we can see, if we follow that well, we got a pretty darn, I got a little nib there that I can sand off, but that is 45 degrees, ladies and gentlemen. Now we repeat that on the other long board, and then we got to determine our length for the next cuts. I know I want my shelf to be just about 36 inches long. So that means these need to be at least that long, plus the width of our boards on the side, so that we can notch those in. So the 1x4s, even though they're called 1x4s, are 3.5 inches wide. We're gonna have 2 of those. 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7 in today's math. We'll take our 36 inches, we add 7 inches, which equals 43 inches. So from the tip of this to the end of the other miter tip needs to be 43 inches in my case. Of course, for your shelf, it could be any measurement that you want. As long as we make them the same, we're gonna be good. You want this one facing out and you want this one facing out. 43, I usually just take a pencil and put a rough mark. That's not where we're gonna cut, but I know that that's the orientation that I want the angle, because I tend to get mixed up easy, believe it or not. We have our mark from 43 inches that I wanna put an accurate pencil line this time, so that we know where to position our saw. And there. And now that I made a little bitty mark there, I'm actually gonna go ahead, it's a smart thing because these have to match exactly. I'm gonna go ahead and stack them up, make sure the ends that I've already cut are even. And then we're gonna do this again, but cut both at the same time. And go. Now we know both of these are the same length. Those are our outsides. So now we have to determine the height that we want it to be. So I'm gonna say about, doesn't need to be real high. I'm gonna go 13 inches. So we need to cut these 2 boards at 13 inches, but we can go ahead and cut the 45s on one side and then measure to cut the other side. Probably be a good idea to clamp these when we did this, but a clamp was not in our list of needed tools. So now that we have one side done, we need to go ahead and mark. I said I was gonna do mine at 13 inches. I'll stay true to my word. 13. Go ahead and make the mark because it's easier to line up our jigsaw. Now we stack them, cut them, and then now we're gonna do something fancy. And about an inch or so above here and about an inch into there, I want to actually cut a slot out of there so this board fits down in there. All right, these meet up now. I'm gonna put mine about an inch above. to measure an inch. Then after we have that measurement, we also want to measure 1 inch in, because that's how deep we want it to go into there. Once we have that measurement, we can reference off the shelf so we know it's the exact measurement that we need. We need to use our square to square it against the side. 1 inch in, hold that steady. And now, all we gotta do is cut that out. Now when we cut this, we wanna be as careful as possible to stay inside of our line. We're probably gonna have to cheat a little bit on our tools used and maybe grab a couple of pieces of sandpaper because we're gonna need that to kind of finish it up anyway. But stay inside the line and then we'll use sandpaper to refine the rest of it. Now we'll do that on the other one, and we'll clean them up a little bit and make them match. Now that we have them both cut, they're gonna need cleaned up a little bit because they're not exactly the same. So I'm gonna hold them. Just take a piece of plywood or any kind of wood, take some sandpaper and glue it on there. You don't have to do it this way, but then I'm gonna just carefully sand these on each side while I'm keep checking and holding them as square as I can. I'm gonna sand both sides until I get them down even. And then we're gonna have to take a narrower piece of wood and clean out the bottoms. So now we got that all sanded, filed, cut, chainsawed, whatever. This will fit down in there, look at that. And then when we put these on here, that is gonna be a pretty cool looking shelf. I think so, I think so. Now it's time to put some of this together and we are just going to use glue. Trust me, it's going to be just fine. If you have a clamp, you can use it. Otherwise, honestly, if you just hold it here for a couple of minutes, it's gonna stick and be just fine and dandy. Let it dry for a couple hours and come back. All right, so we're all glued up. The very next step we gotta do is make sure that our shelf is cut as accurately as we can lengthwise. So we're gonna mark that and cut that as accurately as we can with our jigsaw. No other tool for that. Set it in one end so that we know that it is where it needs to be. And then on this side, make a little mark where we want that to cut. Go back with our handy dandy square. Draw our line. I'm gonna put this just past our line. Oh, I can almost slide that in there. We'll clean this up with a little bit of sandpaper and it's gonna fit just fine. All right, here we go. Bring a little sandpaper on the edge. Cut with our jigsaw. Oh man, look at that. The gaps are good. Woo, that's fancy. Now it's time for a little trick for some extra support. This is a pretty tight joint. It would glue in there and hold okay, but I'm not gonna try to tell you that it's gonna hold much of anything at all. So remember the pieces that we cut off for our 45s that were too long for our frame? We cut those little corners off of there and then we're left with these. What can we do with these? We can glue those right on the frame, have a little bit of a reveal here. It's gonna give it a real nice traditional look, help reinforce this miter a little bit and help hold weight of this shelf and help keep it flat and level. Oh man, utilize every scrap that we got. Also want to show you my corners here. I'm not gonna pretend like I glued that up and just held those joints together and they were perfect. There's a little bit of overhang here, but all we gotta do is just sand these corners off a little bit. Nobody's gonna know. So the very next thing that we're gonna wanna do before we start putting this together, because it'd be a pain in the you-know-what to do it afterwards, is we wanna get this sanded. You use just the sanding sponge that you can get at any store. You can use sheets of sandpaper. I like to take sheets of sandpaper and glue them just like this, just a piece of old desk or something I cut up. Glue it on there, makes a really good flat surface for sanding. All right, time for the glue up. This is ridiculously easy. Put a little glue in there. Okay. And wipe the glue there. Yes. So now's a good time before your glue sets. We can put this on here and double check how close we are as far as being square and whatnot. That one looks pretty darn good. I can go ahead and glue that one in there. It's gonna wanna slide around a little bit, so it's gonna hold it for a minute, maybe 2 minutes. You could easily tack a really small nail right here with a hammer and a really small nail up through this, just like 1 inch long, just to hold this in place. I am gonna go ahead and put a couple of brad nails in the back. I know we have to add a hammer to our list of tools, but surely if we're wanna build a shelf, we have a hammer. Well, now that we're glued up, we got our supports in there. Guess what? We could be done right here with our shelf. Just a natural wood look. I think it would make an excellent looking shelf. I used my fine grit sandpaper, 220 in this case. I like to kind of ease over the edges on everything just to make it a little bit softer. So we did that. Now, like I said, this could be done. This is a very easy shelf. We used a jigsaw, a square, tape measure, some sandpaper, and really that's it. You probably want to put a little bit of a finish on here of some sort. Completely not necessary if you don't want to, but I'm gonna go the extra step. I'm gonna go ahead and paint mine, and then I'm gonna put a solid wood accent piece here on the front. I think it's really gonna make it pop, as they say. We want it to pop, and then we want it to hang on the wall and not pop off. So, primer, great options. Shellac, buy this any big box store in the spray can. Water-based poly, you could spray that on there and that would protect it. What I'm going to do, just because I can and because I'm going to paint it white, I'm gonna use this Zinsser bin primer. This is great stuff for the money. It can be sprayed easily if you have spray equipment, or it can be brushed and rolled on. It really does a good job of blocking. If you ever painted pine white and didn't prime it very good, it will ooze through there and just make your projects look like crap. So we're gonna prevent that with a little bit of bin primer. So here she is in all of her glory, all painted. I put a couple of coats of paint on there. Like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you could paint this. You can spray paint it. This Zinsser bin primer works great for sealing raw wood. You can buy it in the quart, you can roll it on, you can brush it on, pour it on, any way you want to paint it or not paint it, your choice. And again, right on the back of our corner supports, we could run a couple of small brad nails in there, just trim nails, like I did, just for a little extra support. I'm putting a piece of trim on the front of this. That's why I didn't paint this. I'm using this scrap of walnut that I have because I think it looks nice with the white. There's all kinds of different choices for trim that you could put on there. You can paint them a contrasting color. You could actually find some pieces of trim that are actually made out of walnut. It's a little pricey, but if you don't have scraps, there's lots of different options you can do this. And I really think everybody will get a lot out of this super easy shelf because it's just that, super easy. So here it is in all of its glory. We are done with the wall shelf. Super easy to hang. 3M command strips are your friend. These heavy ones will hold up to 16 pounds. There's nowhere near 16 pounds on this shelf, nor would I put 16 pounds on this shelf because like I said, it's not a bookshelf. It's just for my wife's decorations and trinkets, we'll call it. So I let her do her magic as a little bit of decoration just for this video shot, as I also am sitting awkwardly on the back of my couch for this video shot. So it turned out great. It's really gonna match the decor in our living room. It was super easy to make. And again, we only used a couple of tools, which is the main point of this whole video. So thanks again, guys, for watching. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. And we will see you in the next one.